Hey, it's Benjie Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org for more info, or you can always email me directly at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. And on the line with us today, we have Purabi Sinha Das, and we're going to be discussing her amazing book, 22 for 22. Available for purchase through Amazon, barnesandnoble.com, and people, listen, if you want to gather everything that Purabi has in store, well, you got to do yourself a favor and you have to head on over to her personal site. It truly is a one-stop shop for everything that she has. Now, that's PurabiSinhaDas.com. And just for some spelling there to make sure that you don't mess it up, we have PurabiSinhaDas.com. And as I stated, there you'll find more information on Purabi herself, more information on this fantastic book, 22 for 22. But people, get this. In addition to that book, which of course is the main anchor for today, she's also written a plethora of poetry and prose that you can also find on the website, and two other books. One is called Moonlight, The Journey Begins. The next is called What Will It Be This Time? All of which, again, are available through her personal site, PurabiSinhaDas.com. And I will say, Purabi was brought to our network, People of Distinction, today by some of the best publishers in the business, Good River Print and Media. So if you or anyone you know have a book that they'd like moved, I'm telling you, people, give yourself the best gift you could possibly give. Contact Good River and have their wonderful team move it for you. You can find out more information on them at goodriverprintandmedia.com. And listen, people, it is an absolute pleasure to have Purabi here on the line. Purabi, first and foremost, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you very much for being a guest. How are you doing today?
Thank you for having me. I am doing very well, thank you. It is cold here.
Well, there you have it. Listen, Purabi, I don't live in New England anymore, but of course I was born and raised there, so I know all about that cold weather, and I don't miss it one bit, okay? So more power to you. I will enjoy the sunshine here in Southern California, but listen, we truly appreciate having you as a guest, all right? I really do mean that. Levity aside, what you've embarked upon here and what you've put forth is truly profound, and I can tell already it's going to help a lot of people. Either A, just to escape, as I mentioned a moment ago, or B, even in your poetry, right, or even the main messages behind some of these fictional narratives, it is going to inspire that hope and the resilience that we were talking about. So it's a no-brainer why you are a guest on our network today, and we're really looking forward to this. Now, before we go into your book, Purabi, I want to start by learning a little bit more about you. So tell us a little bit more about your background, please.
I am born and brought up in India. We came to Canada a long time ago, my husband and I. So I have been educated in India. I got my BA in English Honors from Ranchi University in India. And when we came here, we were actually, Canada wasn't like a foreign country to us, although we hadn't ever come here before. But I had a pen pal who was living in Ottawa. So she was always after me to come over, and study in her school and stuff like that. But my dad wouldn't allow me to do that, of course. So as it happened, I suppose it was in my future that I would come to Canada. Mm-hmm. So I am the youngest of four siblings. We lived together in a large sprawling house in a small town in Bihar, which is now Jharkhand. That is in the east of India. And so this house, our house was old with that old world charm so common in ancient dwellings. It had a large garden to the side with several shady trees and a smaller one in the center of the courtyard. There was a deep well also, and we had a swing from the guava tree. So all of that actually has, when I go back, my childhood and my growing years has really influenced my writing, because my family we were all voracious readers in our family. So books they were an important part of my growing years. And then my parents, they were very fond of entertaining. So we had an open door policy, especially during Christmas, when friends and neighbors dropped in to chat, have a cup of tea, have, slices of Ma's Christmas cake.
Right.
So I was brought up that way. But life in India was also very different for me because I did not know how to cook, clean a house, wash clothes, having never done them growing up. Mm-hmm. And yet, when my husband and I came to Canada, we adapted to a very new lifestyle very quickly. And sometimes when I think of that and I ask myself, how was that possible? How could we adapt so quickly to a different lifestyle? And I have a sneaking feeling that maybe building a life in a new country and making our own decisions made us feel grown up. And that's why we were able to, adapt to a different kind of lifestyle so quickly.
Purabi, thank you very much for sharing all of that. Listen, the only thing that I have to say is we are going to have to invite you back onto the network, Purabi, not to discuss this book again or any other books that you write in the future, just to discuss your background. Because, listen, I am enthralled with the idea of an open door policy for a family, right? Because that sounds like a lot of commotion. That sounds like there is never a dull moment and there's always more happening. And I'm sure you have stories for days, okay? Myself, my listening audience, we would love to be a part of it and love to hear it. Of course, the anchor for today is all about your book, 22 for 22. So let's head there next. Purabi, give us a brief synopsis of what your book, 22 for 22, entails.
Okay. It is hope. Without hope, life has no meaning. The collection in this book reflects my own emotions and how they shaped me. I had to dig deep within to explore those emotions and give myself permission to have them appear in my writing, actually. I remember, this was a long time ago, I remember the first time I saw a person living on the sidewalk of downtown Toronto. I could not sleep that night. And you know why? Because I kept asking myself, how can this happen here? And that instance must have buried itself in my subconscious because very soon a story emerged, Perfect Gift, which is part of this book. There is displacement, sure, and loss in that story, but also hope gained, which comes from a gift larger than life itself. So that's how it was, when I started putting it together, I wanted to bring a gift to the world because as writers, we have this advantage that we can create worlds. And though this can be a fictional world that we are creating, yet it can arouse stirrings of hope within the reader. We can take them on a journey sprinkled with glimmers of magic. And that's the kind of writing I wanted to present to the world at that time. Because just before Christmas last year, we went into lockdown again. And I sensed the despair that gripped our community. Mm-hmm. So I was determined to avoid returning to that black hole again. So I have structured the book in 3 parts: stories, poetry, and magical travel vignettes. The stories are connected by the idea of family, relationships, creation, and humankind's neglect of creation. Each character, though they are fighting their own demons, embark on life's journey. Maybe hesitatingly at first, that soon becomes hunger, a compulsion to break out of negativity, follow a path wreathed in hope. Because I feel life is a faith journey, faith in the innate goodness of life, and faith creates hope. Mm-hmm. In the stories section, in Fortress and Refuge, which is one of the stories, a young woman who has suffered abuse at the hands of relatives will rise to take charge of her destiny. She shows immense fortitude and courage to do this. 2 important qualities, something we all have seen happening repeatedly in our present situation during the pandemic and also post-pandemic. In Perfect Gift, a homeless man offers the only thing he has in his possession to the victim of a horrible accident. He has nothing, yet he helps another. using two qualities we all possess but forget to use sometimes, kindness and charity. In Bless Them All, another story, a young girl discovers the true meaning of friendship that transcends barriers of age and religion. Here we have the alchemy of relationships. Well, these are just a few samples from the story section. In the poetry section, at the end of each poem, I have added a few lines giving the context, how and what inspired me to write that piece. Nature and humanity have always been my teachers. I love rain, and when I was composing the poem Something About Rain, I was actually seeing my sister and I sitting with our father on an old wooden bench we used to have in the veranda of our home. And when the rain came, the three of us watched the drops fall and gather on the flowers and leaves in the garden. A picture that was so powerful that I had to include this context at the end of the poem so that the readers will get to know me better. And I follow the same pattern for each poem in the book. Now, there's a ballad at the end of the book. The Ballad of Mariam was inspired by a scene at the Canadian National Exhibition in Toronto. There was a display at that place about the Silk Road. So as I was wandering through the dark halls lit only by lanterns, I began to imagine this 14-year-old girl who runs after a caravan. She's determined to find a treasure for her mother. I returned home and began to write. And as I wrote, images began to jostle for attention. And before I knew it, I had composed this poem. I have to add that I would love to put this particular one, this piece, to music. Unfortunately, I'm not musical and I can't read music at all. And the last section, which is the section for magical travel vignettes, I chose to showcase some of the places I have visited and that have impacted me emotionally. Sometimes this is strange. During my travel, I might see a tree, a window, a cave, or even a pile of rocks that will have such an effect on me that when I start writing the travelogue about that place, it turns into something mystical where fiction meets magic. And one such example is A Room, A Voice, and Beloved Frank Danny. We were visiting a stunningly beautiful plantation. And during the tour of that plantation, the owner said that when they were doing renovations to that place, they discovered a tiny room, and this was called the Poor Relations Room. I had never, ever heard of a poor relations room, but I found out that poor relations or young orphans were kept in a room like the one I saw, always locked.
Wow.
Food was passed to them through a tiny opening in the door. Yes, and as I stood there, I'm still getting goosebumps. I was just hearing a voice, and that's how that particular piece came into being. So that's a little bit about the background of my book, 22 for 22, and what inspired me.
I love this, Purabi. Thank you very much for sharing. People, I'm telling you, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, PurabiSinha.com, that's where you have to go. There's no beating around the bush. You got to pick up your copies. It's called 22 for 22. Now, Purabi, next question that I'd love to get into. I am absolutely fascinated by your title because there's something about it it's just so unique. Now, people, first and foremost, 22 for 22. So the first 22 is actually written out. And then 22, the second 22 is a numerical. So it's just 22. Now, I'm really curious about that, Purabi. Yeah. My mind is going crazy here. And I have all these different assumptions about that title and the connection that it has to the narrative. Well, here's the thing, Purabi. You know what happens when you assume. So I'm not going to do that to you. I have you here on the line. I'm going to go directly to the source. Talk to us about that title and why you chose it to be the representation for your book.
Okay. Yes, 22 for 22. Now, after I had, my debut novel, Moonlight, The Journey Begins, was launched in August of 2021. So after I finished that, and I was going through the promotions and all of the stuff that I needed to do, the marketing and all that, I'm the sort of person who can't sit still. I always have another project going on in the background. So I said to myself, I have this collection of stories, poetry, and travel vignettes. I want to put it together as a collection, and I want to launch it in the year 2022. So I have to tell you this also, Benjie, that I am fortunate to have a very supportive family who remain interested and curious about my work. So we were sitting around the table having a meal last year, and I was discussing this book, this collection, and I said, okay, I want to launch it in 2022. And my son, and I said that and it has 22 literary pieces. And my son said, great idea, 22 for 22. I said, wow, brilliant. You see, my parents used to call me Tutu, T-U-T-U, which would also be the number 22. So it's just an affectionate nickname. So I knew that my son was onto something. And then, of course, the title was born, 22 literary pieces for the year 2022, but it could also be myself for 22.
There you have it.
Makes any sense.
There you have it. You know, Purabi, listen, I guess I should have just assumed because I had that exact same answer. No, I'm just playing. Of course, that is wonderful.
Really?
No,
Brilliant.
I'm being facetious. But that is wonderful, Purabi. Thank you very much for explaining that. Listen, you know, I could think of no better place to go next because let's just call it a spade. My listening audience is going to get very upset with me if I don't ask this next one, okay? We know that this is a collection of short stories, but it's also a collection of poems that you've written. Well, Purabi, if you have a poem readily available that you can read to us right now, you know, I think it's perfectly timed. And myself, my listening audience, we are all ears.
I would love to do that. Yes, I would love to read a poem from the book. And the name of the poem is Freedom Song. And just as a background, quickly, this poem was inspired by a group of women, brave survivors of human trafficking I met when the organization, instrumental in giving these women a helping hand, invited me to visit their place of employment. So as I sat down to chat with these women, I was struck by their courage and by the look of peace in their eyes. But most of all, you know what I sensed? I sensed freedom, dancing and leaping in the air in that old house where these women worked as artisans, turning out beautiful objects for sale, thereby taking care of self and their family through meaningful employment. Returning home, I composed this poem about freedom, important as the air we breathe. So here we are, Freedom Song. Freedom is to go for a walk any time of the day or night without fear. Freedom is to greet a stranger and not be called fast. Freedom is to be able to choose one's partner. Freedom is to own one's body, to decide how to use it. She is visiting a house in a city teeming with population in an area she did not know existed, a large house with many floors and even more rooms and windows. No spur of the moment plan is this, but well laid out with regular communication to those in charge, from whom she received permission to visit. Freedom is to embrace with open arms that one liberating chance to finish school. Ignore society's shocked question, with adult children at home? Freedom is to listen to your heart and forge ahead. Freedom is to choose where to sit on the bus or train. Freedom is where stories are created out of memories. Freedom is to greet each morning knowing another night has passed. The women greet her with folded palms, their eyes crinkling welcome. Strong, playful, courageous, hopeful. These women have emerged victorious and free from a fear-filled and humiliating past. Each has a story to tell. Freedom is leaving open the back door to hear nature play her lute and lull jaded senses into rapturous bonding. Freedom is to gaze at stars surrounded by the silence of night. Freedom is to read any book, sing any song, watch any movie. Dress modestly, society spits, building yet another prison of senseless hate, negative comment. You don't want attention of the wrong kind. Why can't I dress my way? Why should you rule over me? She wants to shout, but fear shuts her mouth. Freedom is to be able to dress any way the heart desires. Freedom is to share a passion, to journey with like-minded people. Freedom is to leave sorrow behind and look to a future with hope. Freedom is to live with equality, to never again have to fight for it. They chat, sitting side by side in a room lit by the lamp of hope and achievement. In a corner, a child, wrapped in a quilt from old fabric her mother sewed, sleeps in peace. This is childcare practiced at work, promising a better tomorrow. The tiled floor is clothed in fabric, showing many works in progress. Proud women, owners of their own work, who feed their family. Freedom is the ability to forgive. Understand that life is tethered to the cornerstones of mercy and tolerance. Without forgiveness, there can be no blessing. She rises to the surface, breathing oxygen from freedom gained. Just as she is no longer confined, breaking free of societal bonds that drop one at a time, she hears the song of freedom sung in unison by the women and echo to remain etched on every brick of this house. This song, sung without words, created by actions of bravery, is a privilege to hear and witness.
Purabi, thank you very much. People, listen, I think so much of the power in her book lies in the relatability, right? In so many factors, you don't have, and let me clarify, when I say relatability, of course, that poem, as she mentioned, was about human trafficking. I hope that there is nothing relatable about that concept, right? But we know that that is, of course, a part of society, as dark as that is. So by having these conversations, we are bringing the awareness to that, which, of course, is very beneficial in and of itself. But outside of the concept of human traffic, I mean, we're talking about love and acceptance. That is universal, right? We're talking about forgiveness. That is universal. Those are relatable pieces. Those are relatable concepts. And I absolutely love it. So here's the thing, people. You may not be able to relate to every single thing that she says and everything that she talks about. But I promise you that underlying message of hope and resilience that we talked about earlier in the interview, it is absolutely infused in every single page of this book. You have to head on over there. You have to pick it up. I could go and I could talk to her for hours on end. There is that much to discuss. I'm that engulfed in what we're discussing. But you know what you have to do. Okay, we're going to put a nice little bow on it right now. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, PurabiSinha.com are where you have to go. I'm telling you, people, this is a book that absolutely needs to be on everyone's shelf. It's so much bigger than a book. This is a movement, okay? Let's just call it what it is. This is a movement. Head on over there, pick up your copies today. A wonderful book to add to your shelf, an even better gift to add to someone else's. So you know where to go. Purabi, this has been an absolute pleasure. Such an honor. I truly mean that. Thank you once again for being a guest on People of Distinction.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful experience.